Today, you're going to learn some amazing mapping techniques and secrets known only to Tableau experts. Be sure to watch to the very end because we'll be building a special custom map which is going to blow your mind. I've only ever seen it done a few times, so stay tuned so you can become an expert yourself. And before we begin, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you get alerted when I publish videos every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Let's head over to Tableau, guys. All right, we're going to get started by looking at the data source. So what I have here are postcodes, and then I've got a value for a number of ghost sightings in Australia. And the only reason I did ghost sightings is because I just finished watching Blind Matter on Netflix, so I've kind of got that on the mind. And then I've got latitude and longitude in my data set. So I've preloaded that into Tableau here, and let's begin. So we're going to start by building just a really basic map of Australia. I should tell you guys though that the latitude and longitude in this case was not automatically generated. It was preloaded, right? I've got the actual data sets here. So what do you do if you have postcodes in your particular data set, but you haven't got these as actual fields? Remember, these are automatically generated based on your geographical data in Tableau. So what you need to do is you need to extract it. And the easiest way to do that is, let's say I have longitude and latitude. I just do a basic map as I always would, right? And I'm just going to highlight everything, hover, view data, and then export. And then that will give you the latitude and longitude as an actual field of information, field of data, right? Okay, so now that we have the map of Australia, we're going to do a few things. Number one is we're going to do a kind of regional or territorial type of analysis, right? A lot of the times, especially in my line of work, we do things across Australia. So we don't have one person managing the whole of Australia. We've got different teams, different regional offices. So you want to be able to kind of manage them and do special groups. And from a user experience, you got to think about, are these people at the offices are going to be using this data set. I need them to be able to filter their particular area very easily so they can deep dive and do exploration and all those things. The problem I have is there is no field saying this is the region. All right, so we have to build one. So I'll show you a technique I use. What we need is to first add a border, and I just do this just visually so I can see every single dot. A lot of the times you have these small ones that are just on their own, and it can be kind of hard to miss. Then we're going to use the lasso tool. So we're going to go here in the triangle, we're going to hover here, click on the lasso tool, and we're going to start creating our regions using groups. So I'm going to start here. Let's do this one, all right? And we're going to go group. Okay. Oh, hang on. One thing we got to do, and I just noticed it. Let's undo that. Okay. I noticed that this was average, so sometimes you get this issue. So make sure this is dimension. We don't want that to be on average. All right, let's try that again. Let's go lasso. Let's do it again. And the reason I notice it is because usually this has like a little drop down and you'll see all dimensions, and that's always the one I'm interested in. So all dimensions. If you don't see that, it means you've missed something. So go all dimensions. You're gonna see this legend pop up. If it doesn't, let's say you don't have that, you just go analysis, legends, color, legend. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to exclude this. All right. And the reason we do that is so we don't end up selecting a region we've already allocated. All right, we'll do the top here. All right, oops, hang on, hover, group that. Okay, and you'll notice that this one, that little all dimensions didn't turn up, and the reason is because you've already set up the group initially. So when you group it, it follows the rules of the group you've already made. Let's get rid of these. All right, group. Let's get rid of that. Let's do another one here. Group. And then we're going to rename this later. So group. All right, and then we'll do the rest. Group. All right, so now to bring them all back, we just get rid of this filter. There we go. Now we have the regions. All right, we're going to bring in the ghost sightings now in here. And you can see now we have concentrations. No surprise, if you're not from Australia, you probably won't know this, but these concentrations are the capital cities, right? So no surprise, you got Adelaide here and Perth and all that. So, all right, moving on. What we're going to do is going to build a dashboard now. So we're going to do a little bit of formatting here just to clean it up. So we're going to go map layers and coastline just to kind of see that. I like to put this in normal a lot of the times just because, you know, you can kind of see the landmass separately. We probably don't need the country names, right? The state names you can probably leave, no problem. I do like to have the sea if it's available. Is the sea available? No, no sea. Oh. Oh, water labels. That's what I was looking for. Just because it just adds a little bit of context where you are. All right, that's great. Then the next thing we're going to do is give these labels. So if I click here, you'll notice nothing happens. That we want to turn on this highlight selected items so we can actually see them turn up. And the reason is because we're going to name these. So we're going to go edit alias. Let's call this northern. What's this one? Let's call this northwest. Right, this one is northeast. Let's call this southwest. Oh, hang on, spelling mistake. Can't have that. Make sure you never ever have spelling mistakes. You want everything to have quality in everything you do. All right, let's call this eastern. Let's call this central. All right, and I think the last one should be southern. All right, great. So we have colors, but you could do more with this now. So let's say I do another sheet and I do the number of ghost sightings. Great. I can actually use that group, which is now a brand new field. All right, you can see if I zoom in here, right, it's got the paperclip and the globe, which means it's a grouped geographical data set now that we've introduced. And I can split this up. So now I can see the count by region, right? I can do a Pareto, right? Just kind of highest to lowest. So we say, you know, Eastern seems to have the most number of sightings. Clean this up, get rid of that. And the coloring I'll use is actually the grouping itself. And the reason being is once you put it into a dashboard, right? So I'm going to build it, put it in here, clean it up a little bit. Right? You want the colors to correspond to each other, right? Because the way the human eye works, we're going to naturally associate the data sets, right? Without people even thinking about it. You can see that, oh, green, green. And that's before they've read any labels, right? That's kind of one of the secrets to visualization is you use color, orientation, size. And the way the human brain works is when they see it, they automatically interpret it before they've consciously done it. The brain just automatically sees it and knows what to do. When it's words or numbers, we're actually looking at it and we're reading it, right? And then we're thinking about it. So neat little trick. All right, great. So we've got this. Now let's make this a lot prettier like you saw in the intro. So we're going to do a few things. Number one is we're going to add some contrast to this. So we're going to go map, layers. We're going to make this dark. All right, so you can see the colors. And one of the things that kind of bothers me a lot of the times with this kind of mapping is, for example, I'm going to zoom in here using the marquee tool. You have a lot of overlapping areas. So we want to see the overlaps. And one thing you can do is switch this from circles to shape, and then it becomes these kind of see-through circles. We can go color and reduce the opacity, right? So you can see a lot of the overlaps and concentrations, right? And let's get out of here, right? Let's make this a bit larger, right? You can do it that way. You can also leave back in circle, but then again increase the opacity or decrease the opacity, I should say. And you can see where they're overlapping concentrations. All right, let's bring that back. And this, a lot of the times, takes up too much space. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch this to floating. I'm going to bring this down here. Okay, we're going to move this to the right. Okay, and the way I moved it is I just held Shift and moved it with my mouse. You can also click on this button right here, and that will do the same thing. If you ever want to reset it so it's automatic, just press this button right here. Okay, but I like to have it on the right just because you know, we have a lot more space and we're really making use of the real estate. Let's expand this. All right, so we have that. We can get rid of this title because we know this whole thing is going to be about ghost sightings across Australia. I almost spelled it wrong there. All right, let's make this like 48 or something. Oh, hang on, 48. All right, and I'm gonna make this white and bold. All right, and I'm also gonna make this floating. Oh, hang on, did it work? Floating, there we go. Resize it. We can get rid of this title. Right. Nice and bold. So it's sort of like a, you know, if you ever seen like those newspaper articles and stuff, it's always got that really big writing at the top. Right, so ghost sightings across Australia. Here we can change this to not have so much white. So let's get rid of this title. So now we're doing kind of some formatting techniques, and we're going to get rid of this white. Actually, we don't even need the axis at all. So one of the rules is if you have labels, then you don't need axis. If you have an axis, you don't need labels. So it's always one or the other. Show header, right? A lot more minimalistic. We're going to format this as well. We're going to get rid of these grid lines. So we're going to go rows, remove this, right? And then we're also going to get rid of this white space in the back. Go here, sheet, and then we're just going to turn this off. Now you see that these letters are now a bit harder to see. That's okay. We're going to go back and change it. All right, so we can just click on this and go white. Okay, so that's for the labels, and then for these, we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to go white, and this time I'm going to go bold. All right, so go back to the dashboard, and we can see it now. So you can see it's very nice, very clean, a lot better than just kind of a basic kind of map. One thing I will change is this Indian Ocean is really bugging me. So we'll go map layers, we'll turn off the water labels after all. All right, there we go. And if you wanted to add text like I did as well in the intro, you can grab this text and you can see it's tiling. Just hold shift on the keyboard and it makes it floating. All right. All right, so I'm just gonna type a quick article for you guys. There we go. Copy that a few times. We're gonna make it white. There we go. All right, so you can put article there. You can put some writing here, maybe wherever you like. And there we go. So that is our first map. Now we're going to do the next one. So I'm going to clean it up and then we'll get started again. All right, the next visualization I'm going to show you is what's called density maps. These are quote unquote relatively new. I think what maybe a year old or something, and it solves a particular problem. If I go back to this one, you see you have all these overlapping ones, and the reason that happens is because if you're zoomed out far enough for a map, you've got a lot of postcodes or maybe even addresses that are very close together. So it doesn't really visualize all too well. So the way to solve that is to use density maps. So let's get our postcodes. Oh, hang on. Let's do it this way. Latitude, longitude, and then add the postcodes in and make sure that's set to dimension. All right. So before we had that, right? What we're going to do instead is you do everything up to this point exactly the same. What we want to change next is if you go into the marks card, you look for density. And that's going to change it to this. Now, a lot of the times people are going, doesn't look very good. And that's because the default color on it is terrible, right? The automatic is always set to this really pale light blue. You want to change it to something like this, like with some really strong colors. So the density one. So let's try density multicolor, right? You see some concentrations. That may not be good enough. Maybe you want to change the intensity as you go along, because you may have smaller concentrations, but on the scale, they don't really turn up. So what you do is you go color, and we're going to change this intensity one right here, right? And you can see it's starting to change now, and you can see more and more concentrations. So no surprise that there's more ghost sightings on the eastern seaboard, because that's where more people live in Australia, right? You can do that. Now, the other thing we're going to do is we're going to edit the background. So I always like to have really good contrast to make it easier for people to see. You always have to keep in mind the user, because sometimes they are older generation or they have sight problems or what's it called, vision issues, you really want to make sure it's readable by everyone so that they know what they're looking at. Okay, so contrast helps a lot. Maybe you can do a bit of washout if you want, if you need to, maybe just a few percent. So you can see these concentrations here. Maybe make this a little bit smaller, something like that. Now, another thing I like to do is everyone's very picky about colors. And in the industries I work, they can be very fussy. So what I like to do in prototypes when I'm first building things for someone, because I don't know what they're gonna like, what I do is I give them options. So a little trick you can do is you can duplicate this, right? Duplicate, duplicate. So I'm just clicking up here. So I've got 4 here, and I'm just gonna change the color, maybe the style even each time. Right, so maybe I'll set this one to normal. We'll change this color to maybe something like this, reduce the intensity a bit, right? And then off to the next one. Maybe we'll change this one to this. We'll go format, map layers. We'll change this to maybe a satellite, right? So blue on blue, probably not very good. Let's do something else, maybe a red. Reduce the intensity a little bit. Maybe a red mixture. So let's say sunrise, sunset, maybe something like that. Wash out. You never know. A lot of the times I've always been proven wrong in that I build something that I'm like, oh, this is the best. I kiss that stamp of approval and I show it to someone. They go, this is rubbish. It happens. Don't be discouraged. You can never predict what everyone ultimately likes, and it's always about the client of what they want. You're building it for them. If they want it a certain way, give it to them. It's your job is really just as an analyst anyway, to just recommend, you know, best practices or what they want to see, and then how it ultimately comes out is up to them. So let's bring these 4 in, right? And we're going to get rid of these titles. Don't need them. Right? And I usually open the line with these 4 are all the same, but if there's a particular one you like, then we can go with that color scheme. And sometimes I give suggestions as well of how you build all your subsequent graphics as well, because each client is different, right? Some like bar charts, some like tree maps, some like hierarchies, some like, bar charts, some like scatter plots, so the list goes on, right? There we go. All right, so that's the second mapping feature down. So I hope you guys enjoyed that. Now we're going to clean up once again for our very last bonus video. So let's get into that one. All right, the last one we're going to do, I don't even know really the name of it, all right? But I saw it on a YouTube video by Andy Kriebel, who's a great YouTuber. He does a lot of Tableau stuff. I've learned so much from him when I was getting started, so be sure to check out his channel as well. We're going to start by just doing the exact same thing, right, for map building. So latitude, longitude, switch these to dimensions, right? Bring in the postcode, right? So we have a detail in here, and great, no problem. Let's look at the last two. All right, we have an overlapping issue here. In the next one, whilst I can see concentrations, I don't know what's in there, right? Specifically, what I mean by that is when I zoom in, it's like, is that one giant blob? Is it one postcode? Is it 50 postcodes? There's nothing really I can click. I guess I can do this and extract the data. That's one way. But when I saw Andy's thing, I was like, wow, it's another way again to look at the data. And as an analyst, it's always just nice to have these kind of in your pocket of all the different types of visualizations you can do. Because every time you deal with a client, the data is different. You don't know what you're going to get. So you can kind of let your creativity go. All right. So what you do first is we're going to do a calculation of this longitude and latitude. And what we're going to do is we're going to round the figure down. So I'm going to go create calculated field. And we're going to go, oh yeah, latitude. All right, so let's call this latitude round. And let's go round. Oh, not round. Round. All right, and we're going to go to 0 decimal places. So it's basically just an integer now. All right, latitude. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat. I'm just going to duplicate this. We're going to rename this to longitude round. Right. And we're going to go edit. And instead of latitude, we're going to go longitude. Go OK. All right. Next step is to change these to geographical roles. So what's this one? Latitude. And then this one, longitude. All right. You'll know you've missed this step because when you're trying to map with it, nothing comes up. All right. So what I'm going to do is let's do another plot, right, using the new ones we've made. So we're going to go latitude and longitude, dimension, dimension. And you'll notice it looks very different, right? Very different. What it's done is instead of everything kind of on a continuous spread, right, it's created like a grid because it's using the longitude and latitude like integer values to make a grid. And it's a very simplified view, which I love because a lot of the times when you explain this stuff, if you can't explain it easily, then it sounds like you don't know what you're talking about, or you're just talking a lot of fluff and science and all that kind of stuff. And that's, you know, maybe it'll make you look good and stuff, but it's not about that. Your job is to make the client understand, hey, there's something in the data you need to take action on. And if they understand it in like 2 minutes, great. They can take action, and that can cause, you know, savings of millions of dollars or the generation of millions of dollars, if not more, over a long period of time. From here, we have one more problem we have to solve, right? When we bring the postcode in, okay, everything looks great, and now we want to add some color. So let's add the ghost sightings, okay? For me, that doesn't seem right. Okay, and the reason is because I know where the concentrations are. So how come I'm not seeing concentrations in the capital cities, right? And the reason is because of the way this detail works. So if I drop postcode into color, right, you're gonna start seeing also all sorts of crazy things. And I'm gonna drop the sightings in here as well for the size. And I'm gonna zoom into this one particular area, right? And let's make this a lot larger, and you can see you get this. Well, what is this? Well, it's the individual postcodes put one on top of the other, right? So it's not a sum of all the postcodes, which is not correct, because then if you've overlapped an infinite number of them, in terms of size of the bubble and how it corresponds to other bubbles, it's not a correct context, yeah? So what we have to do is we have to give each point a unique identifier, and I couldn't work this out at the beginning. Andy doesn't do this in his video because he already has unique identifiers in his raw data set. So I said, well, how can we make a unique one for each point? And it's actually very simple. We're gonna go create calculated field, and we're gonna use the latitude and longitude together to create a unique ID. So we go unique ID, and we're going to bring in latitude and longitude. Now you can't just do it like that. Both of them are numbers, if you will, so we have to convert them to strings. All right, so str, and then we're going to concatenate them, right? We're going to bring them together into a single word, and all you're going to do is add plus. All right, we go OK. And now watch what happens when we bring this in. We're going to overlap or replace this postcode, so I can drop it right on top. Right? You won't see anything change straight away because we've still got postcode in the color, right? So we have to replace that one as well. There we go. Now we have a single color. Well, why? Because we have a unique identifier for that individual point. If we open it up, yeah, we'll probably get the individual postcodes. That's no problem at all. That's great. Because now as a user, well, we'll reduce the size a little bit, right? We can actually see, okay, if we look at it as a grid, there's actually less points for me to consider, much easier to understand. We can say, all right, let's focus here, right? Much easier than saying, hey, I suppose there's a concentration here, here. You know, this one is a lot more simplified. We can clean this up a little bit. All right, let's add the coastline. Maybe we'll make it normal, or maybe dark even, right? Something like that. Okay, now they have colors. You can probably use the sum of ghost in the colors. And I like to use, you know, red, black in reverse. So I can really see those dots. So, look, I mean, it's just so simple. I love this. It's so, yeah, the build is maybe a little bit harder, but it's about the user experience. Okay, one last thing we're going to do before we go is we're going to do a very specialized type of filtering for this. So we're going to do a new one. I'm going to do our normal thing, creating maps, right? So you're probably getting some really good practice now of how many times we've done this, right? And I'm going to bring the postcode in. And then what I want to do is I want to color it again using that group. Now my problem is I'm going to use this as a filter. So I want each region to be its own single area, right? I can't do this, right? Because they're still individual areas. So how do I make it one continuous area? Well, I'll show you, right? So let's get rid of, let's leave the color in there. What you do is you take this group you made and drop it on top of postcode, right? Then you're going to go in here and switch this to map, right? Give it a second, and there you go. So you've actually made a custom geographical space. Now what's cool about this is if we bring sheet 8 and 9 together, right, like so, get rid of these containers. I'm just going to space this out a bit. Right. You don't need this to be this big because this is really just a control. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, we're going to make it floating. I'm going to get rid of this title, get rid of this title, right? I'm going to make this a lot smaller, right? That's it. And then we're going to bring it here, and I'm going to add this as a filter. Okay, so the way this works now, actually let's maximize this so I'll show you the full experience, right? If I want to see a particular region, I can actually click on the region here, right? And it'll zoom in to show me that entire region. Okay, now one little problem I've already noticed is it's only showing me a single point, right? And that's because of kind of the groups and the data points we've made. So we have to change one little thing to fix this, which I just remembered. We're going to go dashboard actions. We're going to modify this. And then we're going to do, we're going to change the target filters. All right, we're going to go add filter. Okay, and we're going to filter on, if I remember, we're going to filter on, oops, we're going to filter on this group that we created. All right, I'm going to go OK, and OK, that should hopefully fix it, and then OK. So now if I click, let's say, the southern region, we should see all the dots. All right, there we go. So we can see all the individual little dots. Maybe we can change the washout here so we can see them a little bit better. All right, but we can play around with the colors. All right, so my computer is now thinking. Oh, hang on, I think I'm changing the wrong one. It should be this one. All right, there we go. So I can see the dots. All right, let's get out of this. And there you go. That is your bonus custom chart. So let me know what you think. If you have any ideas for videos you want me to do, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Again, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you guys soon.